Time for Halloween again. Now this time, I'm giving myself a break, and I'm going back to one of my favorite video game franchises, Castlevania. It never stops. The same way Dracula keeps getting resurrected, I keep finding these games just creeping into my subconscious. The same way the Belmont family has to keep putting evil back in its place, I'm cursed to keep doing game reviews and constantly mentioning Castlevania.
Say from the Castlevania kind of reminds me of a Castlevania. It's like in Castlevania,
The Castlevania.
So once again, it's like Castlevania.
I talk about it all the time. So what the hell, let me just get it all out. This is going to be a big Castlevania marathon with my own perspective. This is Castlevania, how I remember it.
It's the Nintendo age. I'm sitting on my playing Super Mario Brothers when my cousin comes over and says, "You want to play Castlevania?" Instantly, it triggered images of Dracula in my mind and of all the frightening horrors that lurk in the dark. We popped that evil son of a in the Nintendo and bam! What can you say? It's side-scrolling 2D action at its finest. Now keep in mind, NES was in its early years, so I was still getting used to games that consisted of more than one screen. When I got to the giant bat, I thought it was Dracula, but nope, just the first level boss. I still had a whole game ahead of me. Not only is it a culmination of our classic gaming sensibilities, but of all the horror cliches. We have mummies, hunchbacks, and the Frankenstein monster straight out of the Universal movies. It also reminds me of the Hammer horror films with all its gothic scenery, and it draws from Greek mythology too, like the Medusa. Even the Grim Reaper makes an appearance. Death himself takes orders from Dracula.
This game is simply a masterpiece. I love it. Well, I never said it would be easy.
I am prepared to talk about the more frustrating aspects of the game, but first I want to discuss the more quirky moments, just those funny fantasy video game elements that are usually taken for granted. One thing I never understood, after you defeat a boss, an orb comes down and you have to touch it. What's the point? Couldn't the next level just start right away? Why do I have to touch an orb? And besides, what the is an orb anyway? Just a glowing ball? Another thing I want to know is who is the architect for this castle? All these blocks and staircases have no rhyme or reason. How about all these candles? They're everywhere. But the Simon Belmont, that's common. You see a candle, you whip it, and hearts come out.
If I were to whip a candle, would hearts come out? I'd like to know.
In most games, hearts replenish your health. But in Castlevania, they're basically ammunition for whatever weapon you're holding. In the second game, the hearts are currency. So in a nutshell, the hearts in Castlevania games are anything but health. The only thing that replenishes your health are food that Simon conveniently finds in the walls. I always thought it was a roasted turkey or a carved ham right out of a Tom and Jerry cartoon. However, the instruction manual says that it's a pork chop. Okay, well that's a pretty big pork chop. Who cooked it anyway and hid it in the wall? And if you were Simon Belmont, would you eat an old pork chop that you found in a wall? It must be dirty.
I do have to say that would be convenient. If all I had to do was just whip the wall when I was hungry, this wall would break. If there's a pork chop in this wall, I would so eat it.
Now let's talk about the difficulty. I don't think anyone would deny this is one of the hardest games ever made. And it's all because of one simple problem. When Simon gets hit, he jumps back. You could have full health, but just because there's a pit behind you, you're dead. It's a severe handicap that up the entire game and the rest of the series. Then there's certain enemies that just the shit out of me. There's hunchbacks which jump all over the place. I used to think they were monkeys. And then, of course, there's those enemies that just fly across the screen, like the Medusa heads and the bats. The hardest part in the entire game, besides Dracula, is the hall right before the Grim Reaper. You have Medusa heads coming at you from both directions, and two knights throwing axes at two different altitudes. I mean, look at the pattern going on here. Anything that hits you drains a quarter of your health, so that means 4 hits and you're dead. Oh, but the knights take 9 hits. 9 hits. You can't even concentrate on attacking them because you're too busy dodging Medusas. But you can't dodge the Medusas because you're too busy dodging the axes. But you can't dodge the axes because you're trying to hit the knight. But you can't hit the knight because the game's driving you crazy. It's like a test. It's a test to the When you get to Dracula, don't even bother fighting him until you stock up on hearts. Go back down the steps, come back up, and all the candles are back. Rinse and repeat. This is extremely tedious, and nobody feels like doing it, but if you want to stand any chance against Dracula, you're gonna have to. Dracula may not seem so bad at first, especially after you send his head to the moon, but then, oh my god. What in the unholy name of is this ness? Oh wait, that's not a word? Well, it should be. So you fight the evil cookie monster. Your health is never replenished, so this whole thing is like an endurance round. If you took one single hit on Dracula, I say your chances against the cookie monster are up a rat's.
Yeah, it took me 20 years, but I finally got this game beat. Your mother!
And you still gotta get the orb? Oh, you're gonna replenish my health right after I beat the game? Thank you so much. Dracula's castle crumbles, and then come the credits. Trans Fisher? It reminds me of Terrence Fisher, the director of many of the Hammer horror films. That's a funny coincidence. Oh wait, Bram Stoker? Like Bram Stoker, the author of Dracula? Well, Christopher B?
Is it a joke? I don't get it. Are they saying Christopher Lee is like a bee? No, it can't mean that. This is probably just a series of strangely coincidental typos. Belo Lugosi, Boris Karloff's, they're just around. Love Cheney Jr., Mick Shreks, Green Stranger? Is this supposed to be funny? Like, just to take a celebrity's name and change it around? That's like if I took the name Steven Spielberg and called him Steven Gielberg. Like, that's not funny. That's kindergarten level. No, kindergarten students don't find that funny. Aliens don't find that funny. Well, anyway, that's Castlevania for you. Good game, but holy is it hard. Now, as promised, we're going to plow through the rest of them. All the old school Castlevania games. The ones that I grew up with. But not that one. Next on our list is Castlevania 3, which in many ways is the true follow-up. No, I already reviewed that game. So anyway... No. Stop. Stop. Stop! This game is the unholy f***ness. You probably remember it as my first game review. That was 5 years ago, before I took on the regular duty of playing duty. Back then, I wasn't as hardcore. I used a code and I skipped over a lot of the game. So now is my second chance, because I'm going to do it for real this time. I only scraped the surface off this smelly turd, and after that, it really starts to stink.
Just to clarify, though this game is terribly flawed, it still has a lot of nostalgic value for me. The graphics and the music are fantastic, and it still has that Castlevania atmosphere. Oh, then there's parts like that. Why is it necessary to interrupt the game like that so often? You need hearts to buy stuff, and when you die, you lose all your hearts and you have to start from scratch. So if you're trying to buy something, your best bet is to stay in one spot that you feel safe and just keep killing the same enemies over and over. I mean, what fun is that? When it's nighttime, you're just totally screwed because the stores are all closed. So the only thing you have to do is just wait for daytime and chase zombies around. Ugh, get over here, you zombie piece of shit. It's times like this when you get real bored, you find glitches, like at the door. Why does the holy water just stop? For some reason I always found that amusing. I could do that for hours. This is the first Castlevania game to adopt a non-linear style, where you have to roam around and explore. It's a neat idea, just not executed too well. The whole plot is that after Simon destroyed Dracula in the first game, all his body parts were scattered into different mansions. Now, Simon has to rid the curse of Dracula once and for all, and to do this, he has to go into each mansion and throw a oak stake at an orb. You now possess Dracula's rib. Or wait, possess? Possess? Are you kidding me? Well, anyway, it's boggled my brain to no end. How is anybody supposed to know to throw an oak stake at an orb? So I found this one clue. It reads, a symbol of evil will appear when you strike the stake. Gee, that really helps. Couldn't it at least mention, like, where you're supposed... A pair? A pair? Does anybody proofread this shit? It only goes to show how much effort they spent on the game when they can't even get the text right. The text itself seems to be one of the main issues. Not just spelling errors, but the information too. It seems like they're giving you clues, but they never make any sense, and most of the time they're just flat out lies. In adventure games, especially RPGs, getting clues is a big part of the game. So as a gamer, you're inclined to regard what they say as true. After all, why else would it be in the game? To confuse the out of you, that's why. The part that's disturbed me the most is that when you walk in this house, you find this old creepy sitting on the floor. Looks like roadkill with a mop on top. She says, let's live here together. Okay, fine, we'll just live here. Yeah, so, nice place. To sum things up, reading anything in this game is just as useless as the guy in Zelda 2 who says, I am error. That's why this is what you call a Nintendo Power game. Of course, there's the wall, where you have to select the red crystal, kneel down, and then wait for a tornado. But that's just the beginning. There's a part where you have to go under a lake. I can just barely see the platform, so I get the idea that I'm supposed to go down there. But if you touch the water, you die. You have to select the blue crystal, then you kneel down for a few seconds, and then you can go through the water. Who the is supposed to figure that out? There's another spot where you have to go into a cemetery and drop a piece of garlic so you can get a silver knife. Who's this person in a robe who waits in a cemetery for someone to come by and drop garlic? So there's the cryptic parts, but then there's parts which are just plain annoying. Some of the jumps are outrageous. Oh man, get up there! Then there's these blocks. It doesn't look that hard. It seems like you could just hop on over, but if your timing isn't 100% accurate, your jump doesn't reach. I'm gonna try again. Oh, this game is poopy. The most annoying enemies in this game that I never forget are the blobs. They just bounce all over the place. You can't get away from them, especially if you're on the stairs. Oh, what? Let's take a look at that again. I'm on the stairs, totally defenseless. The blob knocks me off and I fall through the fake block. That is so cheap.
The most annoying hazard in this game is water.
Seriously, water? Why is that such an issue? Oh, come on, that wasn't even on the same screen. The last thing to mention are the bosses. There's very few of them, and let me tell you, they got lazy with these bosses. I mean, real lazy. You know how hard the Grim Reaper is in the first game? Well, if you do, then wait till you see how hard he is here. Damn, I'm lucky I got past that Grim Reaper. Then of course, you walk through an empty castle to fight the easiest end boss in video game history. And there you have Castlevania 2.
Well, that was a mouthful, but we should conclude this episode with the last of the NES trilogy, Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse.
In this game, you take control of Trevor Belmont, an ancestor of Simon's who battles Dracula for the first time, making this game a prequel. It goes back to the basic style of the first game, but has two main innovations. The first thing, you often come to a fork in the road where you get to choose which path to take. The other thing is that you get to play as other characters whom you meet along the way. There's Grant, who climbs on walls, Sypha, who has magic spells, and Alucard, who can turn into a bat, but you need enough hearts to do it. Alucard happens to be Dracula's son. The name Alucard's Dracula spelled backwards, and it came from the 1943 movie Son of Dracula.
Announce Count Alucard.
D-R-A-C... What are you mumbling about? Nothing, just a silly idea hit me.
With these innovations, I think it's the best Castlevania game on the NES. But it's also the hardest. There's a stage where the screen keeps moving up. If you're caught at the bottom, you die. What kind of logic is that? In Trevor Belmont's world, what killed him? The TV screen? So you can't waste any time. You gotta keep going up. No, what the was that nonsense? Tell me that's fair to make you have to hurry only to have knights appear out of nowhere. Your greatest hazard in this game is not pits, not water or spikes or anything like that. It's the stairs. The stairs are your worst nightmare. If you're next to the stairs and you try to use your special attack, the attack doesn't work. Instead, you go up the stairs. Look at this. Like, God, get down. I want to attack the knight. Oh, God, get off the stairs. Oh, God, you're defenseless. When you're on the stairs, your ass is How about the floor? Let's make the floor a death trap, too. Okay, that's fine if you want to play like that, but how in the holy damn mother am I supposed to attack the enemy when the floor's falling down? Did the game developers expect you to be some kind of miracle multitasker?
Thank God for Alucard. See, I can cheat too, you rotten.
Oh, and when you're using Sypha's freeze spell, whatever you do, don't freeze the enemy projectiles. That was a disaster. And that's the way this whole game is. It's just an ongoing train wreck.
Got no mercy. This is the reason why Game Genie was invented. But I'm not doing that because I'm going to do this legit. Now where's that extra live code?
Help me. That's it. You spell help me. Isn't that the most appropriate password you ever heard? Because anyone who plays this game, that's exactly what you're thinking. I've made it to Dracula, but never beaten him. Wherever you stand, 2 towers of fire come up, trapping you, while another tower comes up in the middle. How are you supposed to dodge that? It gets you every time. The worst thing about this is that when you die, it doesn't start you back at the stairs. No, not like the other games. Instead, it sends you all the way back to the beginning of the stage. It's relentless. And Dracula has 3 forms. You're telling me you have to make it all the way through the stage and fight 3 forms of Dracula without any continues or power-ups? Are you mad? How are you supposed to do that?
If there's any game that puts you in a bad mood, it's Castlevania 3. You know? Like, if you want a game that'll you off, putting this game in your Nintendo is like running open-armed out into a rainstorm of You want to go to the wall? Well, there's one way to put your to the wall, and that's to stick your in an electric outlet. You want to play tennis with an orangutan while having your head up a hyena's Well, good luck. Well, that finishes off the Castlevania trilogy. But there's more memories to be shared. Because Dracula never dies, Halloween is going overtime, it's a Castlevania-thon. Oh! Oh! This game is like playing tennis with an orangutan while having a hyena's head up your or your head up its and